Hey everyone, this is Isaac here. A little over a month ago, I made a re-review of Paw Patrol the movie after originally having reviewed it in 2021, because in the 2 years since then, I'd say my overall video quality has become a lot more professional, and ever since then, there's been another movie from that year that I figured deserved another torching from yours truly. Ladies and gentlemen, my arch nemesis, Dear Evan Hansen. Believe it or not, leading up to DEH's release, I was actually excited for it. Beyond the original stage musical being highly successful and one of the most iconic musicals from songwriters Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, who are also known for their songwriting work in La La Land, The Greatest Showman, Lyle Lyle Crocodile, Spirited, and the upcoming Snow White remake, this was a movie about topics that hit really close to home for me. I've been suffering from anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts since I was 12 years old. Although my thoughts of ending my life are thankfully much less frequent nowadays, it was a problem that not only heavily affected me, but also my family when it was at its absolute worst. So seeing that this movie would be about these sort of topics and had already received critical acclaim when it was on stage, I was hopeful that, like how it was advertised, it could be a reminder that even when you're at your absolute lowest low, things really do get better. Then I saw the movie, and oh god, was it the exact opposite of what I thought it would be. Unlike my previous 2021 arch-nemesis, this movie was actually negatively received by critics and even by fans of the stage musical, and it failed to make back its already low budget, likely due to competition with two superhero movies released around the same time as it. So at least I'm not alone in my opinion this time around. But enough stalling, let's get into the meat of this review. If you don't know the basic premise of Dear Evan Hansen, I wish I could spare you the details, but you already clicked on this video and have watched up to this point, so it's a little late to turn back now. It's the story of Evan Hansen, a teenager with crippling anxiety who broke his arm during a failed suicide attempt. One day, a letter he wrote to himself as a therapy exercise is intercepted by school bully Connor Murphy, who a few minutes ago signed Evan's cast because why not? And then the next day, Evan learns that Connor killed himself, and his parents think the two were friends due to the coincidental reasons I mentioned earlier. Now, granted, Evan initially tries to clear up the confusion, but his attempts to do so play out in a similar manner to the 2020 presidential debate.
Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now. Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question
Why wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
The question is
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
So what does he do instead? Well, he gaslights them into thinking he and Connor were friends so that he could finally be admired by his peers and so he can f*** Connor's sister Zoe. Remind me how this is supposed to be a love letter to those who feel alone? Because to me, this felt much more like an anthrax letter. Let me start my lambasting of DEH by talking about something that was talked about a lot leading up to its release. Ben Platt starring in the role he originated in despite being in his late 20s. Now yes, adults have played convincing teenage characters before, I'm not denying that, but Ben just looks way too old for this role. In fact, I'd even say he looks younger without all the makeup he got. And his casting has frequently been chalked up to nepotism since Ben's father Mark produced the film and it just so happened to be released on his 28th birthday. Honestly, yeah, I gotta agree with the nepotism accusations. It only becomes more difficult to defend when you realize that there have been several younger actors who portrayed Evan on stage that I'm sure they could have casted while still maybe keeping Ben as an executive producer or giving him a cameo appearance, similar to what happened with the film adaptation of In the Heights that also released in 2021. But no, Ben's the only person who can do the role according to screenwriter Stephen Levinson, so here we are now. Why do I bring this up? Because Ben's bad acting is really put on full display in this movie. Now yes, I won't deny that he's a talented singer and that he's given good performances in other movies and shows, but in this movie, he makes James Corden look like Liam Neeson. Evan's anxiety is given the most cartoonishly over-the-top portrayal imaginable, from his constant twitching to his warbly speech to him Naruto running away from Zoe. Oh god, this scene always gets me. Back on track now, how this movie portrays anxiety feels flat out characterish to a genuinely insulting extent. Not all people with anxiety are like this. Some people instead bottle up their emotions. And although the movie does try to reconcile this through the new song The Anonymous Ones, it feels hollow considering how for the bulk of the film, we're left with a portrayal of anxiety that's on par with music's portrayal of autism. Just the most surface level, stereotyped showcase of a condition that's a lot more complex than meets the eye. And that extends to what I said earlier about how this movie is supposed to be uplifting, that it's supposed to provide a spark of hope to those who feel alone or unseen. I mean, it even includes the suicide prevention lifeline in its closing credits. Yet the way it goes about handling these topics is by focusing on one of the most despicable characters ever conceived in any sort of media. Evan's actions are abhorrent to be sure, but what's made worse is that it goes about it by trying to make it seem like what he's doing is good. Maybe it's a good thing that Connor killed himself because now his legacy can be immortalized through a totally fictitious lie spread by a sociopathic creep. Like, seriously, when Nimona, a movie meant for kids, has a better and more emotionally impactful portrayal of depression and suicide than this supposedly more mature movie, it really speaks volumes as to just how badly they dropped the ball with its themes. And that's why Dear Evan Hansen pisses me off to no end, because its portrayal of depression is genuinely on par with the self-harm scene from the Family Guy episode Brian's a Bad Father. And like I said, Evan and his actions are barely shown to be in the wrong, unlike the show and its song Good For You, which was cut from the movie in favor of Evan simply posting a Logan Paul apology on Instagram.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
Honestly, I don't know how to keep this review going without sounding repetitive. Maybe I can talk about the songs? Yeah, let's do that. Now, I won't deny that Pasek and Paul are very talented songwriters. Even in their weaker projects they were involved in, like the Aladdin remake and Trolls, they still put out some decent songs. And with Dear Evan Hansen, out of context, these songs ain't half bad, but when they're put in the context of the film, they're absolutely f***ing horrifying. And this isn't helped by the fact that not only is the movie's directing and cinematography as bare bones and uninteresting as possible, but that all but one of these songs feature Ben Platt doing such a horrendous singing job to where I'd much rather be listening to the Scuttlebutt from the Little Mermaid remake. Again, Ben's done some decent songs before, but here he has more voice cracks than Gwen from Total Drama and does so many weird vocal stems like what Christina Aguilera did during her rendition of the national anthem that it just makes him look like a show-off, and not a very good one at that. So with all this bashing I've done of Dear Evan Hansen, one question might come to your mind. Is there anything I liked about it?
No.
I mean, I guess Caitlin Dever and Amy Adams were trying their best with the materials they were given, but that does nothing to change the fact that Dear Evan Hansen is one of the worst films I've ever had the displeasure of watching. It's a reprehensible showcase of depression that glorifies one of the most vile characters ever put to fiction, whose actor gives one of the worst performances in recent memory. The rest of the characters aren't much help and mostly add to this movie's disgustingly mean-spirited tone, and the songs only serve to try and make this diabolical plot seem uplifting and fail miserably at doing so. There's not much else I could say without sounding repetitive, other than pointing out the plethora of other movies that handle mental health themes infinitely better than Dear Evan Hansen. But make no mistake, it really is that bad, and after 2 years of me having first reviewed it, it's still a 1 out of 10. Well, there you have it. I reviewed both of my arch nemesises from 2021, at least the ones that became memes on my channel. Speaking of which, Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie comes out tomorrow, and my review will be out sometime after I get home from VidCon in Baltimore, so be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!
Short steps, deep breath, everything is alright. Chin up, I can't step into the spotlight. She said, I'm sad, somehow without any words.